Chosen one. Heaven noticed you this morning, before the sun rose, before anyone spoke your name, before the world demanded your attention. Heaven leaned in close and took note of your obedience. You may not have heard trumpets, but angels did. You may not have seen a sign in the sky, but heaven wrote one above your name. This morning, when you lifted your heart quietly, when you chose surrender over self, when you refused to quit, though no one saw your struggle, God called that proof. You didn't even realize you were being watched by eternity. The way you got out of bed, despite the weight on your chest. The way you whispered a thank you instead of a complaint. The way you chose to forgive that person again, even though they never said sorry. These weren't small acts. They were divine signatures that heaven read aloud. The unseen things you did. The quiet choices no one clapped for. Those became your covenant testimony this morning. Heaven said, "This one is serious." The angels recorded, "This one is committed." You didn't just survive another sunrise, you passed a spiritual inspection. Every tear shed became ink in the book of remembrance. Every breath of surrender rose as incense before the throne. This morning was not random. It was orchestrated by the Spirit to reveal your level of faith. You see, many claim they love God when blessings pour freely, but few remain loyal when the sky turns silent. Yet you stayed. You prayed. You believed. You kept walking. That is why this morning felt different. Something shifted in the invisible. God has been measuring hearts, testing motives, and yours shone pure. Heaven now trusts you with greater weight because your obedience cost something. Listen, chosen one, this was not about performance, but posture. Heaven doesn't grade perfection. Heaven measures surrender. And today, your posture said, "Here I am, Lord," still standing, still believing. Your faith became a light signal in the spiritual realm. Angels gathered around your house like guards around a holy flame. The enemy watched in confusion because you should have quit by now. Yet you didn't. Do you realize what that means? It means your name is now echoed in divine corridors. It means your steps are being recalibrated to divine timing. It means your trials weren't wasted. They were auditions for trust. You proved that you love God not just for what He gives, but for who He is. And that, beloved, is the essence of covenant faithfulness. The Apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, chapter 15, verse 58, "Be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing your labor in the Lord is not in vain." Yes, that's you. You're being trained to tread on heights others fear to climb. You prove to heaven that you can be trusted in the valley. So now you'll be lifted to the mountain. You have demonstrated endurance under silence, loyalty under pressure, and devotion without applause. That is why new authority is being stirred within you. When you woke this morning and whispered, "Thank you, Lord," even with pain in your bones or confusion in your mind, God whispered back, "Now I know. Every sacrifice has been seen. Every unseen prayer is fuel in the divine engine." This morning, heaven saw not your weakness, but your willingness, and willingness always outruns worthiness. Chosen one, you have stepped into a new chapter of divine recognition. The Father's eyes are on you, not in judgment, but in joy. You are not fighting to earn approval. You are walking as one already chosen. This morning proved it. God needed to see if your worship was tied to outcome or to love itself. You answered with silence, surrender, and stillness, and that answer echoed through eternity. Now, don't let fear speak louder than faith. You are marked by obedience. When the next test comes, and it will come, remember this morning. Remember how heaven responded to your unseen yes. You're not an accident. You are a deliberate instrument in the symphony of redemption. Keep your posture low and your faith high. And now, I invite you, if this message resonates with the fire in your spirit, pause right here. Like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. This space is not entertainment, it's a prophetic altar for the faithful. Let the world know that obedience still matters, that surrender still opens heaven. Type the prophetic number 777 inches the comments below to declare, my commitment is complete. Let heaven see your public yes. Oh, chosen one. The test you faced this morning was not ordinary. It wasn't random, and it wasn't punishment. It was heaven's quiet exam. Wrapped in routine, you didn't know that while you went about what felt like an ordinary day, the Spirit had already positioned unseen eyes around you, watching not your lips, but your heart. You didn't realize the battle in the spiritual realm was observing your reactions. Every sigh, every restrained word, every decision not to give up was being weighed like gold on heaven's scales. Faith not in shouting, not in miracles, but in the choice to stay when everything feels unanswered. This morning was your examination of loyalty under pressure. You didn't even have to say a word. Heaven read it in your posture. While others questioned God's silence, you rested in His sovereignty. That's what separates the called from the chosen. The called need reassurance, but the chosen trust, even when the sky stays quiet. You may think you were simply surviving your morning, but spiritually, you were standing on trial before divine witnesses. The enemy pointed at your pain, saying, they'll give up. Yet heaven answered, watch them worship. And you did. You worshipped in weariness. You whispered, thank you, through trembling lips. You chose to keep faith in motion. That was the moment heaven said, approved. No, you see, divine testing is never for God to learn who you are. It's for you to see who you've become. You've grown. Beloved, the old you would have broken under this season, but the new you bowed instead. You chose reverence over reaction. You chose surrender over self-defense. That's what it means to have matured in spirit. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 17, verse 10. I, the Lord, search the heart and examine the mind to reward each person according to their conduct. Their deeds deserve, and heaven did just that. God examined the quiet corners of your soul today, not to expose your flaws, but to highlight your faith. He found something pure there, something that no storm could drown. It wasn't your perfection that impressed heaven, but your persistence. You didn't give up when you had every reason to. You must understand this truth. Chosen one, God's tests are never about information, they are about revelation. The test reveals whether you can be trusted with transformation. Before every promotion, there must be proving. Before every elevation, there must be endurance. And you have endured. When you woke this morning, the spiritual atmosphere recognized you as someone different. Your spirit has become weightier. Your words carry new authority. Your prayers echo with the strength of someone who has wrestled through silence and refused to let go. This morning proved that your relationship with God is not built on convenience but on covenant. There was a reason you felt stretched, pushed, and pressed today. It was heaven confirming your capacity. You've been refined in a fire no one else saw. And what came out was not ashes, but anointing. There's a purity now in your walk that cannot be imitated. Those who mocked you for your delay will soon see the reason for it. You were being tested not to be punished, but to be trusted. When you go through days like these, remember, the greatest proof of your faith is not found in your words, but in your restraint. Heaven sees what you hold back, not just what you release. When you could have complained, but didn't. When you could have retaliated, but chose peace. Those moments preach louder than any sermon. This morning, you made a divine statement without words, without show. You proved that your love for God is not dependent on comfort. You stood tall when your emotions tried to fold you. You lifted your head when your heart wanted to collapse. That, chosen one, is divine maturity. Heaven applauds not just your victories, but your restraint, your steadiness, your silence that carries reverence. The test you passed was not for a grade, but for a crown. You may not feel different yet, but something eternal has shifted. Heaven's trust in you has deepened. You've stepped from being a believer to being a bearer, someone who doesn't just follow God, but carries His presence through obedience. Remember this truth: sometimes the silence of God is not distance, it's a divine invitation to prove your depth. You have proven it. You've walked faithfully through divine quietness. And now, unseen doors begin to move. The same silence that once hurt will soon make sense. Chosen one, take a breath. Heaven smiles on you. You have passed the test you didn't know you were taking. When silence became your offering, heaven stood still to listen. You didn't shout your devotion. You whispered it through patience. You didn't argue your worth. You proved it through restraint. Every time you held your tongue instead of defending yourself. Every time you walked away from drama that tried to bait you back into chaos, heaven called that worship. You thought you were just keeping peace. But in truth, you were building an altar made of silence. Chosen one. The world doesn't understand this kind of power. They think victory is noise. That proof is performance. But the kingdom knows otherwise. True power is quiet. It is the strength to stay gentle when provoked, to keep trusting when misunderstood, to love when unappreciated. You lived that sermon this morning without ever stepping onto a stage. When heaven looks down, it doesn't measure the volume of your voice. It measures the purity of your response. God saw you choosing stillness while your emotions screamed for attention. He saw you surrendering what you wanted to say because you valued His presence more than being right. That silence spoke louder than any speech. There is a kind of obedience that shouts without words. And you've mastered it. You turned your pain into praise simply by refusing to let bitterness bloom. The moment you stayed silent, hell lost a weapon, because silence, in the hands of the righteous, becomes a sword. We are reminded through the writings of David in the Psalms, chapter 62, verse 1. Truly my soul finds rest in God. My salvation comes from him. And that is what you did. You found rest, not in revenge, but in God. You refused to chase closure from man because you understood that peace is not something people give. It is something heaven sustains. Every time you said nothing, you said everything. You told heaven, I trust you with this. Len, there's a sacred beauty in holy restraint. It is not weakness. It's wisdom wrapped in patience. The enemy thrives on reaction, but silence starves him. When you refuse to respond in anger, you robbed darkness of its delight. That moment of calm wasn't passive, it was powerful. You didn't ignore the battle, you won it quietly. Chosen one. Understand, this silence in obedience is not emptiness, it's full of faith. When you hold your peace, you give God room to speak. The same God who parted seas will part confusion for you. The same God who silenced storms will silence your accusers. But he moves best when you stop trying to fix what only his hand can mend. Today, your silence became a melody in heaven's courts. Angels moved at the sound of your surrender. You may have thought no one noticed, but the Spirit did. He leaned close when you chose peace over pride. He recorded that moment in the archives of eternity, labeling it proof of faith. Many will never understand why you didn't retaliate, why you walked away instead of arguing, why you smiled when you could have snapped. But that's because they don't see the war you won inside. The true battlefield was not between you and them, it was between your will and his. You surrendered your will. That's what made it worship. And now, chosen one, heaven begins to reward quiet strength. You are entering a new level where you won't have to explain yourself anymore. God will do the explaining through the fruit of your life. The same mouths that questioned your silence will one day testify of your peace. Your silence has spoken prophecy over your future. It has declared that you no longer move by emotion, but by revelation. You've matured past needing the last word, because you've already heard the eternal word. Remember this truth. What looks like nothing in the natural often echoes thunder in the supernatural. Heaven moves when you stand still in trust. So now, as a prophetic act, comment these words below. Peace remains. And write it as your seal, not your slogan. Because peace is not a mood, it's your mantle. Every time you declare, peace remains, you remind your spirit that what God gives cannot be stolen, only surrendered, and you've chosen to hold it tight. Behind closed doors, chosen one. A hidden battle has been raging, one that no one else could see. Yet heaven has been watching every moment. While others slept soundly, your spirit wrestled in silence. You cried prayers that had no words, tears that carried more meaning than sentences ever could. You felt unseen, but you were never unnoticed. Every sigh, every moment, you chose faith over fear in the dark, echoed in heaven's throne room like a declaration of war against despair. You didn't realize it, but your nights have been training grounds. When the world turned away, God turned his face toward you. When people stopped checking in, angels didn't. The loneliness you felt wasn't abandonment, it was separation for sanctification. God was removing distractions, isolating you not to punish, but to purify. He was teaching you how to hear his whisper when all other voices fade. You see, the hidden battle reveals who you are when no one is applauding. It's one thing to worship in church. It's another to lift your hands in your room when no one's watching. That's where heaven measures authenticity in private devotion, not public display. And you, beloved, have been faithful in secret. That's why the next season will be marked by visible victory. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Isaiah. Chapter 45, verse 3. I will give you the treasures of darkness, riches stored in secret places, so that you may know that I am the Lord, the God of Israel, who summons you by name. Yes, treasures of darkness. There are blessings being born in the very shadows you wanted to escape. What you saw as isolation was actually incubation. God was shaping something sacred within you. He hid you so He could heal you. He silenced the noise so you could finally discern His voice without distortion. Your hidden battles were never wasted. Every night you felt unseen. Heaven was writing your story. Every tear was currency in the unseen economy of grace. While others celebrated public victories, you gathered private strength. While others flaunted achievements, you built endurance in the secret place. And though it felt heavy, the hidden war refined your armor. You no longer react like before, you respond from revelation. You've learned that not every fight deserves your energy. Not every critic deserves your reply, because you've been in battles that only prayer could win. You now discern which wars are worth waging. That wisdom was bought through pain, and heaven calls it precious. Chosen one. Do not despise those quiet nights. They were altars. The place where your soul cried, "Why?" was the same place your faith whispered, "Still, I trust." You were being molded in mystery, and even the angels marveled at your endurance. They saw you break and still bow. They saw you weep and still worship. They saw you stripped of certainty, yet clinging to hope. That is what separates you from the ordinary. In those nights, God wasn't absent. He was watching your posture. You never stopped coming back to Him. Even when it hurt, you never stopped believing. Even when everything around you told you to quit. That consistency terrified darkness. Demons thrive on despair. But your persistence denied them oxygen. Every time you chose prayer over panic, light expanded. You didn't see it. But spiritual territories shifted because of your obedience. Every whispered "Jesus" in the middle of the night was like a sword slicing through oppression. You were fighting for more than yourself. You were securing freedom for generations after you. Your tears watered the soil of future miracles. Now the time of revealing approaches. Those who only saw your struggle will soon see your strength. The same rooms where you wept in silence will echo with praise. The same people who doubted your endurance will witness your restoration. But even when that happens, remember, the hidden place is where the real power flows from. Never lose the intimacy that was birthed in the dark. For some, the secret place feels like solitude. For you, it became sanctuary. That's why you walk differently now. You've seen what prayer can do when no one else believes. You've heard heaven's voice in the quiet. You've felt God hold you when there were no words left to pray. That kind of intimacy cannot be faked. It can only be forged in fire. So walk boldly. Chosen one. You have faced the unseen and survived. The darkness didn't destroy you. It revealed the depth of your light. Heaven calls you battle-tested, purity proven, trustworthy. You didn't just endure the hidden war, you conquered it. And now, every hidden victory is about to be displayed for the glory of God. Heaven's record keeper has moved your name higher. Chosen one. There is a moment in the unseen realm when a single act of faith causes the ink of eternity to stir, and this morning, that moment belonged to you. The angels who once watched in silence have begun to record with celebration. Every test endured, every key surrendered, every unseen prayer has been gathered like pearls and placed before the throne as evidence of loyalty. You may not feel different yet, but in the spirit, the papers have shifted. Your name has been called again, this time not for trial, but for promotion. When you chose to remain steadfast in the middle of chaos, heaven interpreted it as readiness. You didn't just survive the season, you graduated from it. And now, new authority is being written beside your name. There's something sacred about how heaven promotes. It doesn't happen with applause or announcement. It happens in whispers and weight. Suddenly, the atmosphere around you changes. Conversations begin to align. Opportunities start to knock gently, not because of chance, but because obedience has rearranged your spiritual coordinates. The Father has seen your faithfulness and said, "Increase their reach." Heaven's record of you now shines brighter. The spiritual ledger reads, "Tested and trusted." Every delay, every denial, every painful pause was actually the ink God used to write your next chapter. When you thought He was withholding, He was preparing the pages. The voice of God thundered in the book of Exodus, chapter 14, verse 14. "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." You lived that truth. Chosen one. You were still not inactive, but surrendered. You stood when standing hurt. You kept your heart open when betrayal tried to harden it. That stillness was not weakness, it was strength disguised as peace. While you waited, God fought. And now, heaven's archives declare you victorious. Picture it this way. Your life is a great tapestry woven by unseen hands. Every thread of pain, every strand of patience, every color of courage has been interlaced with divine precision. You see tangled fibers, heaven sees a masterpiece. And now, the weaver has stepped back, nodded in approval, and said, "Display this one. Improve." Promotion in the kingdom doesn't always look like platforms or applause. Sometimes it looks like peace that no one can steal. Sometimes it looks like discernment, sharper than before. Sometimes it looks like your prayers carrying a new weight that shifts atmospheres when you whisper. That's the elevation you've entered, a realm where authority flows, not from effort, but from alignment. You have become like a lighthouse on a quiet cliff, unnoticed by many, yet vital to those lost at sea. Your faith burns steady in a stormy world. That's why heaven amplifies your light now. People who are drowning in confusion will soon find direction through the calm you carry, and when they do, you'll point not to yourself, but to the source. Chosen one. Take a moment to breathe in what that means. You have proven dependable in delay. You've shown heaven that you can be trusted with influence because you didn't seek it for yourself. The King rewards that kind of heart with quiet expansion. You will begin to see open doors that feel almost accidental. But they're not. They're invitations written in heaven long ago, now released at the appointed time. So when new opportunities appear, walk humbly but confidently. You earned this through faithfulness, not fame. Let your spirit stay anchored in gratitude. Remember the nights that built you, the prayers that shaped you, and the silence that taught you how to listen. And if this message is reaching your spirit right now, pause for a moment. Look at how far you've come. There was a time when you would have broken under what you're carrying now. Yet here you are stronger, softer, wiser. Heaven's handwriting is all over your story. I want you to know something deeply. You are part of a divine chain of endurance. Every like, every share, every moment you help spread this word isn't about numbers, it's about light. It's like passing a torch through the darkness. Someone scrolling right now needs what you already survived. When you share, you're not promoting a voice, you're extending healing. And when you subscribe, it's more than staying connected. It's saying, I will remain in the flow of what God is doing here. Together, we become a chorus of chosen ones, strengthening one another in the same light that carried us through the night. Your life is no longer hidden, it's being unveiled. The records have changed. You are seen, sealed, and sent. The ink of heaven has already dried over your name, approved, elevated, beloved. The morning altar still burns. Chosen one, you may not have seen fire with your eyes, but heaven did when you lifted your heart in surrender, even before words formed on your tongue. God saw flame, the kind of flame that does not come from candles or smoke, but from pure, hidden devotion. Every sigh of gratitude, every whispered, thank you, every quiet act of trust, it built an altar in the unseen. And heaven has not let it go out. This morning, while you thought you were simply surviving another sunrise, heaven saw you ministering before the throne. You didn't have a crowd. You didn't have a platform. You didn't have music or applause. But you had something more powerful: consistency. That is what keeps the altar burning. A heart that shows up even when no one sees. Chosen one. That altar is not made of stone or wood. It's made of your obedience. Every time you pray when you're tired, every time you worship when you're weary, every time you choose faith over fear, you add another log to that sacred fire. The smoke of your devotion has become a fragrance before God's throne. Heaven breathes it in. The fragrance of your faith fills the courts of eternity. According to what is revealed in the book of Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 3, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and He will establish your plans. And your altar now burns with history. Every act of surrender fuels it. Every victory sustains it. And even your failures, when offered with repentance, become wood that keeps the fire alive. You've learned that it's not perfection that pleases God, but persistence. The altar doesn't demand flawless sacrifice. It demands consistent flame. There was a time when you prayed and felt nothing. You wondered if heaven was listening, if your tears evaporated before reaching His throne. But now you know He was watching the flame. The Lord doesn't always respond with thunder. Sometimes He responds by keeping your spirit alive when everything around you tries to smother it. That's His confirmation. That's His yes. Beloved, the altar is sacred because it requires your whole self. It's not just prayer, it's posture. It's not just words, it's surrender. Every time you forgive, every time you bless your enemies, every time you choose kindness when cruelty would feel easier, the altar burns brighter. Heaven responds not to noise, but to the fragrance of a surrendered heart. You have become a living altar now. You carry the fire wherever you go. That's why people feel peace around you, even when you say nothing. That's why the atmosphere changes when you walk into a room. You've been marked by morning devotion. The glow that lingers on your life is not from sleep, it's from presence. Do you feel it? That quiet stirring in your chest when you pause to breathe in His name. That's the altar still burning. Even as you read this, heaven leans closer. The same God who lit the bush before Moses has lit something within you, and it will not go out. But the altar requires tending. You must feed it daily with gratitude. The world will try to drown it in distraction, but you must guard the flame. Protect your peace. Defend your prayer life. Speak softly to the Spirit before you speak loudly to the world. That's how the altar stays alive. This is why some things recently fell apart, not as punishment, but as pruning. God removed the idols that competed with His fire. He cleared the altar so He could fill it again. You may have felt loss, but heaven called it purification. Nothing you lost was needed for where you're going. Only the flame matters now. And I tell you this as one sent to remind you, your altar burns not just for you, but for others. Your obedience lights the path for souls you'll never meet. Your prayers echo in families you'll never know. You are part of a chain reaction of revival. And it started the moment you chose to kneel instead of complain. So today, if your spirit feels that warmth rising again, don't ignore it. That's heaven confirming that your altar still speaks. That's God's way of saying, I'm still here. I still receive what you bring. End of Chosen One. The fire hasn't gone out, it's growing. And soon, those who doubted your devotion will see the glow of glory on your life and understand that you were never wasting time. You were tending the flame. Now, as an act of prophetic agreement, write this number in the comments, 888. It represents new beginnings birthed from divine consistency, the eternal cycle of God's faithfulness. When you type it, you're declaring, my altar still burns. The flame you carry will not die. The morning you proved your commitment was only the beginning of a lifelong fire. Heaven watches. The altar glows, and the light within you continues to spread. Enemies are confused by your stillness. Chosen One. They expected chaos, but they found calm. They planned your downfall, but your peace disarmed them. In their schemes, they anticipated that you would retaliate, that you would fold under pressure, that your silence meant defeat. But in the spiritual realm, your quiet became thunder. Stillness became strategy. You see, peace is a weapon. Few understand. It looks passive to the natural eye. But in heaven's warfare, peace is power. When you refuse to panic, you strip darkness of control. The enemy thrives on reaction. He feeds on your fear, your frustration, your need to explain yourself. But when you remain still, he starves. He swings at air. His arrows lose aim because your calm confuses his chaos. In the invisible realm, demons study your patterns. They expected the same old version of you, the one that once argued back, panicked quickly, or gave up early. But now, when storms rise, you simply breathe. You have learned the art of divine stillness, and it terrifies them, because stillness means you trust God's control more than your own defense. Stillness means you've matured from reaction to revelation. Heaven speaks clearly through the words in Deuteronomy. Chapter 20, verse 4. For the Lord your God is the one who goes with you to fight for you against your enemies, to give you victory. And that's why you can rest. You've realized you don't need to defend yourself when the defender already stands beside you. You've stopped chasing explanations because you've seen that God can vindicate better than words ever could. This new calm you carry isn't weakness, it's a crown. The kind of crown forged in the fire of misunderstood seasons. Your stillness has become a prophetic statement. It declares to every watching power, "My God is enough." And when heaven hears that declaration, it moves, because faith expressed in silence is faith at its most mature form. Anyone can shout in triumph. Only the chosen can rest before the victory comes. The enemies who once mocked your quiet now grow unsettled. They throw shade, but you stay rooted. They whisper, but you worship. They question your absence, not realizing that you've simply shifted realms. You no longer fight flesh and blood. You fight from presence. Chosen one. This is the season where your restraint becomes your roar. You are learning that not everything deserves your attention. Some battles aren't meant to be fought, they're meant to be witnessed. The God who promised to go before you has already stepped into those rooms you were worried about. He has already turned conversations in your favor, silenced lies, and written truth where gossip tried to grow. When you stay calm, you let God finish his sentence. Every time you've been tempted to respond, the Spirit has whispered, "Be still, I've got this." And every time you obeyed that whisper, you robbed the enemy of another chance to drag you into distraction. That's why lately, you feel peace even in pressure. It's a sign that heaven's strategy is working. There is strength in stillness. Chosen one. It's the kind of strength that doesn't need validation. You don't need to prove your growth anymore. Your peace proves it for you. You are walking in the quiet confidence of someone who knows who fights for them. You have outgrown the urge to explain and stepped into the authority of trust. And though the enemy still tries to stir confusion, he cannot understand the dimension you now live in. You used to fear storms, now storms fear your calm. You used to chase clarity, now you rest in mystery. You used to question timing, now you simply walk by faith. This peace you carry is not natural, it's supernatural armor. Your stillness is not emptiness, it's evidence. Evidence that the war has already been won. Evidence that your spirit has found its anchor. Evidence that you are no longer tossed by every wave. Because the ocean inside you now knows its master. So don't underestimate what your silence is doing in the spirit. While you appear motionless, God is moving mountains. While you appear patient, He is positioning your promise. The same stillness that confuses your enemies brings clarity to heaven. Every second, you choose peace over panic. You affirm your trust in divine timing. And soon, those who laughed at your quiet will witness your sudden rise. They will see that your lack of reaction was not retreat, it was revelation. You were never losing, you were waiting. And in that waiting, heaven was working. Your stillness, chosen one, has become your strongest sermon. Without saying a word, you have preached faith louder than fear ever could. God whispered, "Now I can trust you." And the heavens shifted. Chosen one. This whisper was not a compliment, it was a covenant. It was heaven's acknowledgement that your endurance under pressure has proven your heart's capacity. You didn't break when the weight increased. You didn't turn back when the road stretched longer than you planned. You stayed. You kept believing. You kept surrendering. And now, the one who sees in secret has spoken over you, trusted. You must understand what that means. Trust, in heaven's vocabulary, is not light, it's sacred. Before God can place greater authority upon a person, he must first test the vessel for leaks, the crushing, the delays, the seasons of silence. Those were all inspections. You were not being ignored, you were being evaluated. Could you carry his glory without letting pride spill through the cracks? Could you love without applause? Could you serve without reward? Each time you said yes, heaven made a note. The apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, chapter 4, verse 17. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. End. That is your story. Beloved, what felt unbearable was building something unshakable. What seemed like loss was actually construction. You were being fortified for future responsibility. God doesn't hand heavy crowns to untested heads. He watches through hardship. And when you remain faithful in obscurity, he says the words that shift destinies. Now I can trust you. This is what has quietly happened in your life. The warfare you endured was not only to refine you, it was to reveal to the heavens that you would not sell your integrity for convenience. You could be trusted with silence, trusted with pain, trusted with waiting. And when heaven can trust a soul, promotion becomes automatic. There's a reason the storms lasted as long as they did. Heaven wasn't trying to destroy you. It was revealing your capacity to handle divine weight. You were being stretched to carry something that casual believers cannot sustain. You were being built to bear the weight of answered prayers. Not just to desire them, the vessel had to match the volume of blessing. Chosen one. Think of your journey like a bridge under construction. Before it can hold the traffic of destiny, the engineers must test its limits. They add weight, pressure, even wind, to ensure it won't collapse. That was your season. God tested the structure of your faith. He allowed weight so you could discover your strength. You may have felt near breaking, but you didn't. And that's why he said, now I can trust you. This trust means new access. Doors you once knocked on will now open by themselves. Places you once prayed to enter will now call your name. Heaven has shifted your rank not because of effort, but because of endurance. The crown of consistency rests on you now. And what you'll notice in this next chapter is that your discernment has deepened. You'll feel what to say, when to stay silent, and where to step. That sensitivity is a sign of trust. When God trusts you, he shares his secrets. You'll start sensing his heart for others, feeling his compassion in deeper ways, carrying his burdens with grace instead of fear. You've moved from being a servant to being a steward, someone who carries responsibility for heaven's agenda on earth. But with trust comes new testing. Every level of favor demands a deeper humility. The temptation of this season will be to forget who trained you to let success make you forget the secret place. Guard yourself. Chosen one. The same silence that strengthened you before must remain sacred now. Promotion should never pull you away from presence. You've proven your loyalty in drought. Now God can trust you with rain. You've been faithful in private battles. Now you'll be fruitful in public ones. But remember, the goal isn't recognition, it's revelation. What you carry now is not for display, but for impact. Your endurance was never about surviving, it was about qualifying. Heaven's whisper wasn't casual, It was confirmation. The throne has acknowledged your faithfulness, and the Spirit has signed your name in a higher register. You are now marked as a trusted vessel, one heaven can depend on when others retreat. So walk carefully, but confidently. Every step you take now carries spiritual authority. Every word you speak has the backing of trust behind it. And when the next challenge comes, and it will remember this whisper, "Now I can trust you." Because once heaven has said those words, your story can only rise. You're walking proof that faith still works. Chosen one. Every scar on your soul, every tear that once fell unnoticed, now shines as testimony that God never abandoned you. You are living evidence that belief is not fantasy, it is foundation. You've walked through seasons where prayers felt unanswered, yet somehow your heart stayed anchored. That is what faith does. It keeps you standing when logic says, fall. It keeps you hopeful when nothing seems to move. You have become the message heaven wanted to send. You don't need to preach it, you embody it. Every morning you rise after the storm. Every smile that blooms after sorrow. Every act of forgiveness that defies reason preaches louder than any sermon. You are walking scripture. You are the living chapter of grace unfolding in real time. Faith is not proven in what we say when we're surrounded by light. It's proven by how we walk when the road is dark. You walked, you stumbled sometimes, but you never stopped. Even when your faith was shaking, you still held the pieces and whispered, "God, I believe." That whisper was enough. Heaven doesn't measure the volume of your prayer, it measures the depth of your persistence. As Jesus himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 17, verse 20, "If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move. Nothing will be impossible." The enemy tried to convince you that faith wasn't working, but look at you now. You're still here. Stronger, softer, wiser. Faith was never meant to make life easier. It was meant to make you eternal. You weren't asked to understand every twist of the road, only to keep walking. And that's what you did. You believed even when you had no evidence. You trusted even when everything around you screamed otherwise. That's why your life now carries a quiet authority, because it's been tested in fire and found authentic. You see, miracles are not always fireworks. Sometimes they are quiet resurrections, the ability to laugh again, to hope again, to love again. That's what faith built in you. Every day you refused to quit. Something invisible within you was rebuilt stronger. You're not the same person who started the journey. The old you needed proof to believe. The new you believes before proof arrives. Chosen one. Heaven is proud of how far you've come. There were days when even breathing felt like labor. Yet you did it with grace. You carried faith like a torch through the rain. And though the wind tried to smother it, the flame never went out. That's divine endurance. You must know this. The way you walk now will inspire others. There are eyes watching, souls silently listening to your story without you realizing it. Someone who's on the verge of giving up will look at you and say, "If they made it, I can too." You are their proof that faith still works. Every obstacle you overcame became a seed for someone else's victory. Every no you endured became a foundation stone for another's yes. Heaven doesn't waste. Endurance, it multiplies it. Your perseverance becomes provision for others' hope. And now, Faith will begin to repay you. Doors that stayed closed will creak open, not because you begged, but because you believed. Circumstances will align effortlessly, not through striving, but through spiritual gravity. Faith pulls favor, and your life is now magnetic with it. The season ahead will show you what your prayers were building all along. What looked like delay was really construction. What felt like silence was actually strategy. You were never being ignored. You were being prepared. You are now walking into harvest while still holding the humility of one who remembers planting seeds in tears. That balance power with meekness is what sets you apart. It's what makes heaven trust you with more. Because you no longer chase blessings. Blessings now chase you. Chosen one. Pause here. Let the reality of this truth settle in your spirit. You are not surviving anymore. You are shining. You carry living proof that faith is not fantasy, it's force. You are the evidence the world needs. And right now, as a prophetic act, I want you to write these simple words below. Faith lives. Write it not as repetition, but as revelation, because those two words summarize your entire journey. Faith lives means the seed of belief inside you never died. It survived disappointment, confusion, and heartbreak. It lived when logic tried to bury it. It grew roots in dry soil and still bloomed in silence. When you type it, you declare that your faith isn't fragile, it's eternal. You are walking proof that faith works, because faith is alive in you. And as long as it lives, nothing is impossible. Heaven sends reinforcements. Chosen one. You may not see them with your eyes, but the atmosphere around you has shifted. What was once heavy is being lifted. What once felt delayed is now accelerating. God has called your name in the councils of light, and the order has gone out. Send help. Angels are moving. Instructions have been released, and divine assistance is already on the way. You've carried much on your own. You've fought battles in silence, wiped tears in secret, and kept faith when no one clapped. But the Father has seen your endurance and declared, enough. Heaven is responding to your perseverance. The same God who strengthened Elijah under the broom tree now strengthens you under the weight of waiting. As was spoken in the sacred texts of old, in the book of Psalms, chapter 34, verse 7, the angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him, and he delivers them. Yes, beloved, you are surrounded not by chaos, but by covering. Even now, unseen hands are clearing paths you didn't know were blocked. You've reached the point where your obedience has drawn heaven's response. Reinforcements are not sent to the lazy, they're sent to the faithful. You have proven faithfulness in famine, and now the clouds of favor begin to gather. Think of it like a relay race. You've been running alone for miles, exhausted but refusing to drop the baton. Just as your strength began to waver, heaven's runner stepped onto the track beside you. The angels of provision, protection, and peace are sprinting toward your lane, ready to take the next stretch. You didn't fail. You finished your phase. Now the divine team takes over. There's a shift happening, quiet but unstoppable. The weight that once pressed your chest is being lifted like morning mist under sunlight. The doors that refused to open are creaking under divine pressure. What once required your constant effort will now flow with ease. Because grace has arrived to assist where grit once carried, heaven is sending people two human reinforcements, hearts prepared in silence, stirred by the Spirit, assigned to help you carry the vision. Don't be surprised when new connections appear, people who just happen to cross your path, offering what you need without you asking. That's not coincidence, that's choreography. Heaven arranges these intersections like divine architecture. Every encounter will fit perfectly into purpose. You've entered a chapter where effort gives way to alignment. You won't have to push doors down anymore. They will swing open because heaven has already knocked first. Every delay you endured was God's way of ensuring you wouldn't walk alone into what's next. He wanted you surrounded by the right voices, the right hearts, the right strength. And as these reinforcements arrive, remember, they are not coming because you're weak, but because you're worthy of investment. The kingdom doesn't waste resources. Heaven is sending help because your mission matters. Chosen one, take heart. The nights of feeling unseen were never signs of neglect. They were signals that heaven was building your audience in secret. The stage of obedience has been set, and now the spotlight of divine favor begins to glow. The reinforcements are stepping onto the scene. You may begin to notice small changes. First, peace returning where anxiety once ruled. Laughter slipping into rooms that used to echo with tears. These are not random emotions, they're prophetic weather shifts. The atmosphere of your life is changing because heavenly help has entered the equation. This is your divine exchange, your exhaustion for God's energy, your confusion for His clarity, your loneliness for His legion. Every time you whispered, "Lord, I can't do this anymore," heaven recorded it as a prayer for assistance. And now, that prayer is answered. The reinforcements are here. If this message finds you nodding with tears or quiet awe, take it as confirmation. This isn't just for you to hear, it's for you to carry. Like rain absorbed by soil, let it soak deep. When you share this, it's not about numbers, it's about nourishment. Someone else is running on empty and needs to know that help is coming. By liking, sharing, or subscribing, you're extending this revelation beyond your own world. Think of it like lighting candles in a long hallway. Each action, every click, every share adds another flame. Soon, the corridor of faith glows bright enough for others to find their way out of despair. That's how heaven's reinforcements spread through willing hearts who carry light forward. So don't underestimate your part in this moment. The message reached you for a reason. You are proof that perseverance invites divine partnership. The angels are moving because your endurance unlocked movement. The heavens are active because your obedience activated them. Chosen one, you are not forgotten, you are fortified. The help is already near. All you have to do now is stay still enough to feel the wind of their wings. New instructions for the faithful always come after testing. Chosen one, you have walked through the furnace, endured divine silence, and passed the unseen exams of loyalty. Now heaven begins to speak again, not in thunder, but in direction. What once felt like delay was preparation. Now it becomes revelation. The Spirit begins to unfold fresh orders for your next season. You see, God never promotes without purpose. Every new level of authority demands new alignment. That's why, lately, you've been sensing subtle shifts in your spirit, nudges that feel like whispers, convictions that seem small but won't leave you alone. That is heaven updating your instructions. As was written in the book of Isaiah, chapter 30, verse 21, whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you, saying, "This is the way, walk in it." That is what's happening now. The same voice that carried you through silence is now guiding you through clarity. These new instructions may not make full sense yet, but they will unfold as you obey each step. God rarely reveals the map. He gives directions one turn at a time, and every time you say yes, the next road appears. Chosen one. This season isn't about speed, it's about precision. Heaven is refining your movement so that every step counts. You no longer have the luxury of wandering. Your obedience must now be surgical, intentional, and spirit-led. God is not asking for more noise from you. He's asking for sharper listening. There will be moments when these new instructions contradict logic. You'll feel the Spirit pulling you away from certain people, places, or patterns that used to feel familiar. Don't resist it. When heaven changes your assignment, it often rearranges your surroundings. The pruning you feel is not loss, it's alignment. Some connections that once blessed you can't go with you into this next chapter, not because they are bad, but because they belong to an old blueprint. Your new instructions require stillness before movement. You've learned to fight in faith, but now you must learn to flow in faith. There's a difference. Fighting is for survival, flowing is for purpose. You are no longer in survival mode. Heaven is shifting you from defense to destiny. Pay attention to the subtle ways the Spirit speaks. It may not be through thunder, but through timing. You'll notice divine coincidences, an unexpected word, a delayed meeting, an open door that feels like peace when you step toward it. That's how heaven confirms direction now. Peace is your compass. Whenever your spirit feels stretched but steady, that's your green light. Don't rush to act out of emotion. The Spirit is training you to discern between urgency and instruction. Urgency screams, instruction whispers. Learn to wait until the whisper becomes undeniable. The faithful are never driven by panic, they're guided by presence. Chosen one. These new directions are not just for your benefit, they are for your assignment. God is positioning you to influence spaces you once felt unqualified to enter. You'll find yourself speaking wisdom in rooms where titles matter less than truth. You'll be invited into circles where your story becomes strategy, your pain becomes prophecy. That's why precision is vital now. Every yes must come from the Spirit, not sentiment. There's a new rhythm to your life now, a divine cadence that won't let you move too soon or stay too long. When heaven begins to lead, timing becomes the holiest form of obedience. You'll sense when to speak and when to stay silent. You'll know when to step out and when to stand still. The voice behind you won't shout, but it will not let you miss the turn. And remember, the same God who gives instruction also provides provision. You won't have to force doors open. You won't have to manipulate opportunities. What belongs to this assignment will find you, because obedience magnetizes destiny. The moment you align, everything connected to your calling begins to locate you. This is your next phase, divine synchronization. Heaven and earth moving in rhythm through your willingness. It will require humility, because sometimes God's plan will look smaller than your dream, but don't mistake simplicity for insignificance. Often, the smallest obedience carries the biggest breakthrough. So stay alert, stay humble, stay teachable, The same Spirit who whispered, "Wait," in your wilderness, now whispers, "Go." Trust that His timing hasn't changed, only His tone. You've proven faithful in stillness. Now you'll be fruitful in movement. Every step you take from here on is guided, guarded, and grounded in purpose. The prophetic seal over your morning is being set. Chosen one, heaven has witnessed your faithfulness, your endurance, your secret surrender, and now the Spirit moves to seal what has been proven. This is not a temporary blessing, it's a covenant signature. What was tested is now trusted. What was shaken is now secured. The Father Himself presses His seal upon your name and declares, "This one belongs to me." You may not feel the shift immediately, but the seal is spiritual, not emotional. It's the invisible mark of ownership that hell cannot counterfeit. It tells every opposing power, this soul has been claimed. It silences accusations, cancels old cycles, and finalizes your transition from testing to transformation. We are reminded through the writings of Paul in the letter to the Ephesians, chapter 1, verse 13. When you believed, you were marked in Him with a seal, the promised Holy Spirit. Oh, that promise is not poetic, it's legal. In the courts of heaven, your name now carries new authority. The seal declares that your story is no longer open for rewriting by the enemy. What God has stamped, no darkness can erase. Chosen one. This is why the warfare has intensified recently. Every time heaven seals something, hell stirs in frustration. The enemy always tries one last distraction before the door locks. That's why you've felt sudden resistance or confusion, because you're standing at the border of completion. But stand firm. The seal is setting. Think of a potter finishing his work. The vessel has already been shaped by fire. Now comes the imprint, the mark that proves it belongs to the master. That's where you are. You have endured shaping, spinning, and burning. And now the potter presses his sign upon your life. It doesn't just signify belonging, it signifies readiness. You are ready for use. This seal is also a shield. Where once your name was a target, now it's a testimony. What used to trigger pain will soon trigger power. Your scars are not signs of defeat, they are stamps of survival. Proof that you went through the fire and came out refined. Heaven's seal transforms wounds into warnings for darkness. Do not touch this one again. From this point forward, your steps carry weight. When you speak, heaven will back your words. When you move, favor will recognize your footprint. When you pray, the atmosphere will shift quicker. The seal has authorized your voice in the realm of the Spirit. This also means the doors that were previously closed to you will open without resistance. Sealed vessels don't chase, they attract. You won't need to strive for recognition anymore. Heaven's mark will announce you before you arrive. Those who once overlooked you will start to see you differently, not because you've changed your personality, but because God's signature now glows upon you. Understand this truth. Chosen one. The seal is not just for protection, it's for purpose. You've been marked as one who carries light into dark places. That means your presence will disrupt atmospheres that once tolerated evil. Don't be surprised when certain rooms feel uncomfortable or certain people drift away. Light doesn't need permission to shine. It simply exposes what's hidden. You are becoming that light. This morning was not random. It was the moment the seal was pressed. You proved your faith through consistency. And now, heaven answers with covenant. The same God who watched you weep in secret now calls you secured in spirit. You no longer have to prove yourself. You are proof. There's a peace that comes when you finally realize that nothing can separate you from His claim. The seal means the warfare will still come, but it will no longer destroy. The wind may shake the tree, but the roots are now sealed to the rock. So, as you step into your next chapter, walk with assurance. You are sealed. Not striving, you are approved. Not applying, you are protected. Not pending. Every promise that felt delayed is now being stamped, released. Every prophetic word spoken over your life is now being signed, fulfilled in time. And right now, as a prophetic act of agreement, I invite you to write this number in the comments. 555. It represents divine confirmation, grace multiplied, transition finalized, purpose sealed. When you type it, you're declaring, it is done. I am sealed. Let this be your morning declaration. The same God who started your story has signed it with His Spirit. You are marked for destiny, sealed for glory, and protected for purpose. The prophetic seal over your morning cannot be broken. It can only burn brighter. When you become the message, chosen one, everything about your life begins to preach without words. You no longer simply carry revelation, you are revelation. Heaven has turned your pain into parables and your perseverance into prophecy. People may not open a Bible, but when they see how you walk, how you love, how you forgive, they see God's handwriting on your life. You are the living sermon the world didn't know it needed. Every trial, every closed door, every delay that once frustrated you now becomes divine punctuation in the sentence of your destiny. Your story no longer reads like tragedy, it reads like testimony. You have become a walking altar where others can encounter the presence of God simply by watching your peace in chaos. You've moved beyond talking about faith. You've become faith in motion. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Zechariah. Chapter 4, verse 6. Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, says the Lord Almighty. That truth breathes through your existence now. Everything that's about to unfold in your life will not be the product of your own effort, but of His Spirit working through you. You've reached the point where obedience speaks louder than ambition. You no longer chase influence, you attract impact. People will be drawn to you, not for your words, but for the weight of presence you carry. Chosen one. This is what divine transformation looks like. You are no longer a student, merely learning the ways of heaven. You've become a vessel that demonstrates them. The light within you no longer flickers, it guides. You have stepped into your calling, not through noise, but through authenticity. The world has seen enough performances. What it needs now is presence, and you embody it. When you walk into a room, atmospheres will respond. When you speak, hearts will quiet, because your words won't just be opinions, they will be echoes of heaven. You are not a messenger repeating lines, you are a message breathing life. That's the difference between those who talk about God and those who walk with Him. You've crossed that threshold. This transformation didn't come overnight. It came through nights of wrestling, days of surrender, and moments when your heart broke open just enough for light to get in. Every tear watered the roots of revelation. Every season of silence deepened your dependence. That's why your message now carries power. It was written in pain and proven in peace. And now, Heaven positions you as a mirror. Those who are lost in confusion will see themselves reflected in your endurance and realize that they, too, can overcome. You will become evidence that broken doesn't mean abandoned, and waiting doesn't mean forgotten. Your scars will speak louder than sermons because they carry both story and survival. You won't need to defend yourself or convince anyone of your change. Transformation testifies for itself. Fruit never argues, it simply grows. And the fruit in your life now speaks volumes. People will begin to notice something different about you. Peace where there used to be panic. Clarity where there used to be confusion. Grace where there used to be grief. These are not coincidences, they are confirmations. Heaven's message has found its messenger. Chosen one. Understand this, your life will not be comfortable, because true messages rarely are. Prophetic lives are like letters carried through fire. They bear the scent of smoke, but not the mark of destruction. God allows you to walk through storms so that when you speak, the wind recognizes your authority. You don't just talk about survival, you embody resurrection. You are not here to fit in, you are here to awaken. Your very existence becomes a question to the world. What if faith is real? What if love is possible? What if God still moves through ordinary people? Your story becomes the answer, and though being the message sometimes feels heavy, remember, scrolls were always meant to be unrolled. The chapters of your life are opening, not for entertainment, but for enlightenment. You are being read by souls who need permission to believe again. That's why your story can't stay private. Your survival was never just for you. The world doesn't need another speech. It needs a sound. You are that sound, a living echo of grace, a pulse of divine resilience. Every step you take whispers redemption. Every breath you release carries revival. This is what it means to be chosen, to live in such alignment with heaven that your existence becomes evidence. You have been transformed from follower to forerunner, from believer to beacon. You are the message that walks. The crown reserved for endurance waits quietly for those who refuse to bow to weariness. Chosen one. You have walked through fire without letting it burn away your worship. You have crossed valleys where faith was your only compass. And yet you kept going. The crown you are approaching is not made of gold or jeweled with status. It is formed from perseverance, molded by patience, and polished by obedience. Heaven doesn't hand out crowns for comfort. Crowns are forged in conflict. Every time you wanted to quit but chose to continue, the crown was being shaped. Every silent tear that fell in trust became a drop of oil hardening its edges. The world celebrates speed, but heaven honors endurance. What God builds in you through time cannot be replicated in moments. The ancient words recorded in Romans, chapter 5, verses 3 and 4, still echo today. We rejoice in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance, character, and character, hope. That verse isn't a poetic line, it's the anatomy of your journey. Suffering refined you. Perseverance anchored you. Character defined you. And hope sustained you. The crown you are approaching carries the weight of every step taken in unseen faith. It glows not because of perfection, but because of persistence. Endurance has a sound, a rhythm that heaven recognizes. It's the sound of footsteps that never turn back. When others stopped believing, you kept walking. When doors slammed shut, you built altars instead. You became fluent in the language of long obedience. Heaven listens for that sound and calls it worship. Endurance changes how you see life. You no longer panic at pressure because you've learned that pressure produces purpose. You no longer resent waiting because you've seen that waiting isn't wasted, it's womb-like. Hidden within the stillness is the shaping of something strong. God never rushes what he intends to last. And you, beloved, were never made to fade quickly. You were made to carry glory that endures. Sometimes you wonder why your path seemed slower than others. Why? What took others months took you years. It's because crowns take time. Instant success is often hollow. Endurance builds weight. God was building density in your spirit, not decoration for your head. He was making sure that when the crown comes, it won't crush you. It will fit perfectly. Chosen one. Remember how many times you thought it was over? How often you whispered, "I can't keep doing this," and yet, somehow, strength appeared. That strength was heaven, handing you another layer of gold for your crown. Each season of survival was another band of faith woven around your destiny. The beauty of endurance is that it transforms scars into jewels. Every wound you endured for righteousness becomes part of your adornment. That's why the radiant ones in heaven are those who suffered with grace. The shine you carry now isn't superficial. It's the reflection of battles won in silence. This crown isn't about achievement, it's about becoming. It's not placed on those who never fell, but on those who rose again and again, each time with softer hearts and stronger spirits. The crown is the Father's way of saying, "You finished what others feared to start." And yet, endurance doesn't end with the finish line. It begins again in gratitude. The more you endure, the more you trust. And the more you trust, the lighter the burden feels. Because endurance teaches you to walk not by sight but by spirit. It teaches you that even if you lose everything visible, the invisible holds you steady. That's why, despite everything, peace has begun to settle over you like morning mist. You no longer need explanations. Presence is enough. You've seen that storms cannot drown those who have learned to float in faith. You no longer need to be rescued every time waves rise. You've become the one who carries calm in chaos. That's the mark of those being crowned. The crown isn't waiting somewhere distant. It's already forming within you. Every breath that says, "Still, I trust you," adds another jewel. Every moment of surrender adds another shine. The crown is the visible reward for invisible resilience. When you finally stand before the throne, there will be no confusion about how you earned it. Heaven will replay every moment you refuse to quit. Every silent prayer that became a roar in eternity. The applause you never heard on earth will thunder in heaven. And then, with tears of recognition, you will lay that crown back at his feet, not because you were forced to, but because you'll know the truth. You never carried yourself. He carried you. Chosen one. Keep walking. The crown is closer than it has ever been. And though it may not yet rest upon your head, its light already glows through your life. A global awakening of the chosen remnant has begun. Chosen one, across continents, mountains, and oceans. Hearts are stirring at the same divine frequency. It is as if heaven has blown a quiet trumpet, no sound to the ear, but every spirit chosen before time hears it. You are part of that sound, part of that invisible movement, rising like dawn. For years you walked, thinking you were alone, misunderstood, misplaced. But now the veil lifts, and you begin to sense others carrying the same fire, the same ache, the same unwavering devotion. Heaven has synchronized a generation that refuses to blend in. You are not a random believer. You are part of a remnant being gathered for revival. The prophet Elijah spoke, as recorded in the first book of Kings, chapter 19, verse 18. I reserve 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed to Baal, whose mouths have not kissed him. That scripture still breathes today. God always keeps a remnant, a group that remains faithful when the world bows to compromise. You are among them. Your faith is part of a global mosaic of light. Each believer, a tile reflecting divine radiance into dark corners of the earth. Picture it like this: scattered embers across a vast plain. For years, each burned quietly, unnoticed. But now, the wind of the Spirit begins to blow, and those embers unite into a wildfire of awakening. You are one of those flames, and together, the chosen remnant becomes an uncontainable blaze of hope. You've felt the world shifting, haven't you? The way old systems tremble, the way truth feels urgent, the way your spirit hungers for purity. That's the sign of revival, beginning not just in churches, but in hearts. It's no longer about religion, it's about relationship. No longer about performance, it's about presence. God is calling his people back to authenticity, and your obedience is a spark in that movement. Each word you speak in love, each prayer whispered in faith, each act of kindness done in silence, it all joins the chorus of light rising across nations. The Spirit is knitting together. Believers who have never met yet recognize one another by the fire in their eyes. You've probably already encountered them, strangers who feel familiar, conversations that feel divine, connections that feel appointed. Those aren't coincidences, they're confirmations that the remnant is awakening. Heaven is orchestrating unity beyond walls and denominations. What religion divided, revelation now reunites. The Spirit doesn't move through titles, it moves through truth. And when truth burns inside you, you can't help but shine. You are part of heaven's reformation plan. One ember at a time, chosen one. Think of it like the tide returning after years of drought. The ocean doesn't rush, it advances steadily, reclaiming the shore inch by inch. That's what's happening spiritually now. The tide of glory is returning, and you are one of the waves. You carry divine momentum, not because of what you've done, but because of what you've become. And as this wave moves, God is using media, art, music, even ordinary conversations to awaken hearts. That's why what you do with messages like this matters. When you like, when you share, when you comment, you are not promoting content, you are extending current. Each small act becomes a ripple that joins the larger tide of revival. Someone on the edge of despair might see your comment and remember hope. Someone silently seeking truth might click, listen, and encounter peace. So when I ask you to like or share, it's not for attention, it's for alignment. You're helping spread light in the digital wilderness where many wander lost. Think of it as planting seeds in timelines instead of soil. Every click is a spark. Every share, a torch passed to another hand. If this word resonates within you, if something in your heart whispers, yes, this is me, don't stay silent. Be part of the chorus that heaven is composing. Engage not out of habit, but out of heartbeat. Let your voice join the echo of the chosen. Comment below. Share what part of this speaks to you most, and become an instrument in this awakening. When you subscribe or stay connected, you're not following a page, you're joining a procession of light, a family of faith walking toward the same horizon, each one carrying a flame. Together, we make up the skyline of revival. The world is waiting to see. You are not alone. Chosen one. The remnant rises quietly, but powerfully. From villages to cities, from secret prayer rooms to crowded streets, heaven's melody grows louder. And you are a note in that symphony. Stay tuned. Stay burning. Stay bold. The world may not yet recognize it, but revival has already begun, and it begins with you. Divine reversal begins. Chosen one. The tides that once turned against you are shifting in your favor. Every force that sought to hinder you is being harnessed by heaven to help you. What the enemy meant for harm is now being rewritten as healing. You are walking into the season of holy turnaround, where every no becomes necessary, every closed door becomes protection, and every delay becomes destiny. For a long time, it felt like everything was slipping through your fingers: relationships, opportunities, clarity. You prayed, but answers seemed locked behind silence. What you didn't see then was that God was rearranging the story. Reversal is never random, it's redirection. When heaven decides to turn things, it does so with precision. The same winds that once knocked you down are now lifting you higher. The Word of God declares in the book of Genesis, chapter 50, verse 20, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now done, the saving of many lives." That scripture now breathes through your life. Every betrayal, every setback, every night you felt forgotten, they were not wasted. They were woven into a larger narrative of redemption. God was not ignoring you, He was investing in you. The ground that seemed barren was quietly preparing for harvest. This reversal doesn't always start with noise. It begins subtly, like dawn seeping through the horizon. Small signs appear: peace returning where there was pressure, laughter finding its way back into your mornings. You start noticing divine coincidences, doors unlocking that you stopped knocking on, people reappearing at the right moment, opportunities aligning as if the universe suddenly remembered your name. That's not coincidence, it's compensation. Heaven has a way of balancing scales in silence. Every wrong that went unnoticed by men was recorded by God. Every tear became data in heaven's justice system. And now, repayment is due. You're stepping into the divine equation where loss multiplies into legacy. The same pain that once felt unbearable will soon become the platform for purpose. Chosen one. The reversal is not just external, it's internal. God is not only changing your circumstances, He's changing your perception. Where you once saw rejection, you now see redirection. Where you once saw delay, you now discern design. This shift of sight is as miraculous as any open door, because when your vision changes, your atmosphere follows. There is a sacred irony in divine reversals. The things that once humiliated you will become the very things that elevate you. The voices that doubted you will witness your vindication. The weapons that were forged against you will serve as raw material for your testimony. You won't need to retaliate. Your results will respond for you. You may even feel the reversal happening in slow motion, one thread at a time, one conversation at a time, one unexpected blessing at a time. But heaven's pattern is patient. God doesn't rush restoration, He orchestrates it. When He reverses a thing, it never returns to its previous state. It's upgraded. He doesn't just give back what was lost, He redeems the time attached to it. You've entered a spiritual law of return. Seeds that seemed dead are sprouting in new soil. Prayers you forgot you prayed are resurfacing with answers attached. Dreams that once felt buried are stretching their arms toward light. What was dormant is not dead. It was only being developed. You will soon see why God made you wait. Had He moved too soon, your foundation wouldn't have been ready for the weight of blessing. Now, your spirit has grown into its assignment. You can carry what once would have crushed you. This reversal is not temporary relief. It's a permanent shift of status. You are being elevated, not out of pity, but because you've proven trustworthy with pain. And notice this, the reversal doesn't always announce itself through big miracles. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it's a sense of calm where chaos used to reign. Or favor, appearing in quiet ways, an unexpected message, a gentle reminder, a door that opens without force. The Spirit is subtle, but His timing is flawless. Do not rush to explain it to anyone. When divine reversal begins, it often confuses those who once misjudged your journey. Let them watch. Let the fruit speak. Vindication always sounds louder when silence precedes it. You've spent seasons sowing in tears. Now you will reap in peace. Every loss carried a hidden lesson, and now those lessons turn into leverage. Heaven is moving pieces you can't see, aligning connections you haven't met, preparing stages you haven't stepped on. The shift is invisible but inevitable. This reversal also means rest. The striving that once exhausted you is ending. You don't have to chase what's assigned to you. What's yours will recognize you when it arrives. You no longer live in pursuit, you live in position. God is flipping the script so that what once ran from you will now run toward you. Chosen one. Look around. The very ground that once buried you is breaking open with blessing. The desert that drained you is blooming. The walls that boxed you in are now echoing your name in victory. Divine reversal is not coming. It has begun. And soon, when you look back, you'll see how everything fit. You'll realize that nothing was wasted, not even the waiting. The tears were oil. The pain was training. The silence was set up. God didn't forget. He was writing the comeback long before you knew you'd need one. The reversal has already started. Stand still and watch the author rewrite the ending. The morning that marked eternity has already taken place. Chosen one, you didn't just wake up to another day. You stepped into a divine timestamp written before creation. This was not an ordinary sunrise. It was a spiritual signature. Heaven observed your consistency, your surrender, your perseverance, and wrote beside your name, committed. The angels who once stood as witnesses of your struggle now stand as witnesses of your sealing. Today, everything that once tested you has turned into testimony. The unseen obedience, the countless prayers whispered through tears, the battles fought in silence, none of them were wasted. They became threads in the eternal tapestry of your calling. You have crossed a threshold in the spirit realm, one where heaven no longer merely watches your journey, but walks with you in partnership. As the prophet Daniel wrote in his vision, chapter 12, verse 3, "Those who are wise will shine like the brightness of the heavens, and those who lead many to righteousness, like the stars, forever and ever." That is what your life has become, a light that refuses to dim. You shine not because life is easy, but because you've been refined through endurance. The glow that surrounds you is not artificial. It's an accumulation of divine encounters, of choosing obedience over ease, of standing still when storms howled. You have become what heaven calls a burning one, a soul whose devotion illuminates generations. This morning sealed more than your identity. It sealed your assignment. The trials you faced were not random. They were rehearsals for responsibility. You've been prepared to carry what others cannot, to stand where others fall, to believe when others doubt. Every test you endured became training for trust. Heaven now looks to you not as a student, but as a steward of glory. You've entered a new rhythm, a pace guided by peace instead of pressure. The striving is over. What once required your constant proving will now flow naturally from presence. The power you carry no longer needs to announce itself. It reveals itself through quiet authority. Even your silence carries weight now, because it's filled with spirit. This is what happens when a soul becomes fully surrendered. Heaven merges with humanity. You are no longer merely walking with God, you are walking in Him. His desires have become your instincts. His compassion beats through your veins. The same hands that once trembled in fear now heal through faith. You have been transformed from a vessel of prayer into a vessel of power, chosen one. The world will begin to notice the difference, not because of titles or accolades, but because of atmosphere. Wherever you go, peace will follow. Chaos will quiet itself in your presence because the light within you carries authority. You don't chase influence anymore. Influence finds you. You've become a resting place for divine order. And though this journey has not been easy, you now see its purpose. The crushing was not cruelty, it was consecration. God had to press you until every impurity leaked out, until only surrender remained. Now, when you move with clarity. When you speak from eternity. When you love with the same mercy that once rescued you. This morning is not the end of your proving, it's the beginning of your revealing. Heaven is unveiling what it has hidden within you for years. You are stepping into assignments that have been waiting for your readiness. Every delay, every detour, every disappointment has converged into destiny. The waiting season was never wasted. It was building weight in your spirit. And now, you stand as one of heaven's completed works in progress, a paradox of grace, humble yet powerful, quiet yet unstoppable. You no longer need to convince anyone of who you are. The evidence is your endurance. The seal is your peace. The crown is your calm. Look around you. Chosen one. The atmosphere has changed. Even the air feels charged. As if creation itself recognizes the shift. You have become a testimony that faithfulness is never forgotten. The morning that began like any other has ended with heaven's declaration, trusted, sealed, and sent. You are no longer running toward purpose, you are walking in it. You no longer seek signs, you have become one. Wherever your feet tread, the ground remembers. Wherever you rest, glory settles. The mark of the committed is now upon you, not written in ink, but in fire. And when future days bring challenges, remember this morning. Remember the silence that shaped you, the tears that baptized you, the endurance that crowned you. You are not who you were. You are the one who proved to God that commitment can still exist in a distracted world. You are the echo of faithfulness in an age of fleeting loyalty. The morning that marked eternity was never about a single sunrise. It was about awakening you to who you've always been: chosen, faithful, and unstoppable. The story is complete. The seal is eternal. The light within you will not go out. Chosen one. You've reached the end of this message. But heaven's work in you has only begun. What you've just walked through in these words is more than reflection, it's recognition. Heaven recognizes you. The Spirit has confirmed your commitment, your calling, and your crown. You've proven that obedience is not a moment, it's a lifestyle. And now, that light within you will not dim, it will only deepen. If these words stirred something holy inside you, let them keep moving. Share this message like a spark. Someone scrolling in silence right now needs to feel what you just felt, to be reminded that God still calls, still seals, still restores. When you share, you're not spreading content, you're spreading confirmation. Leave your reflection in the comments below. Write what part of this journey spoke directly to your soul. Your words might be the bridge another heart needs to cross from despair to faith. And if you've been walking with me through these messages but haven't yet subscribed, stay connected. This space isn't built for entertainment, it's an altar of awakening. Every time you return, heaven adds another ember to your fire. So like, share, and comment, not for visibility, but for victory. Because every click is an echo, every word a ripple, every act a seed. You are part of a remnant rising across the earth, and your voice matters in the chorus. You are chosen. You are sealed. You are ready.